Hey there, everyone. I'm Ashley Fullington, and welcome in to the Campfire Realignment Special. We have big news from all around the state of Texas as the UIL has given out their new realignment districts. It's going to be a very interesting 2022 through 2024 year. I have two of my friends on with me. I've got John Corman, our Inside High School Sports Insider, as well as Houston Cron Sports writer, and our Inside High School Sports producer, Ward Fasold. Guys, welcome in. Big day. We've got a lot of things going on.
Yeah, we do. We're going to discuss, try to discuss all the districts that have been shown to everybody at 9 a.m. this morning. We did not have the weather they had up in DFW, so everybody got to get together and see those. I believe we have a guest waiting for us, so we're going to start right off with that. Am I right, Ashley?
Yes, we bring in the UIL Director of Athletics, Dr. Susan Elza. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, Dr. Elza. We are excited to have you on to talk a little bit about what goes on for the UIL realignment. Dr. Elza, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I think right now I'm just in realignment. Oh my gosh, wow, because we've been getting so many phone calls and texts and things like that. And most of them are positive. We don't get the negative ones. We see those on social media, but you know, our state is so large, and we are really adding a lot of 5A and 6A schools. And you know, I've talked about it on another show, so some of you are hearing me repeat this. But I mean, with the number that we have, 496 in 5A and 6A combined, it's my phone's ringing. 5A and 6A combined, it's large. And so if y'all can see, I see the biggest issues in 6A a little bit, but in 5A D1, I know you could see it because of the opt-ups. We have a lot of 10-team districts. We have 9-team districts. So it's been crazy. Today has been, and you look back and see everything that we've done, and the maps tell the story. I don't know, a lot of people don't realize we have those posted online. I missed the first part of your question because I was just turning on my camera. So
no, you're good. We're just so excited to have you on with us. I know it's been a super hectic day for you, ma'am.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a good day, though. It's been a good day.
Yeah, for sure. Dr. Elza, what are the biggest challenges that you guys face when putting this all together every couple of years? And once it's finally done, how much of a relief is it to have it out there?
It's I think the biggest challenges are cuts, you know, in the number of schools that we have, and in the disparity that we've got, because we have so many schools crammed in 5A and 6A. And if you look at 4A, we try to use that multiplier of 2. We're above that. If you look at 2A, we're above that. And 3A, we're just slightly above it. And so you don't want those inequities in competition. And we're trying to make it as fair of a landscape as you can. So it's that part's stressful from the start. When we released that, I believe we released that late November, early December. The maps are not as tough as you would think, because we're not looking at the schools. There's dots on there. There's some acronyms, but you're just simply placing them by geographical location. Now, once you actually look at the schools, you see where the controversy lies, because they change districts, they have increased travel. But y'all can see that domino effect. When our schools grow, it changes the landscape of every map, you know, especially 6A and down.
I think in Houston specifically, you got specifically 6A, you got to be pretty happy there, because they're kind enough to have these huge school districts. Makes it easy for you to just put them all together like that. The only one that really didn't have that for you was the 13 6A, where you added some add-ups, and with Cleveland, Conroe, and then Cleveland, New Caney, and then Caney Creek. Talk about going from a 6 to a 9 district there, and maybe not putting them elsewhere, other places. I guess it made it easier for you.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, we didn't have very many changes on the 6A map. You know, you just had schools like Paytow and Highland Park. I mean, across the state that went up. I think Cleveland was one of them too, correct?
Yep.
Okay, I don't have them all committed to memory, but I'm trying. But when you add them, you're going back. I mean, we just dropped these dots on the map. We call them polygons, what our districts look like. And so the first step we take is to drop the prior polygons on there, and then drop these black dots on there so that you can see where the changes. So we can, you know what I mean? Because you need to look at it on a map. Yep. So then you're going back to that geographic location. So when you have schools come up like that, it's going to fluctuate a little bit of the districts. And I think that's, generally what happened there, because we had Cleveland come up. You see that District 19 with Paytow up. That's a larger district. I mean, the 6A was probably, I don't want to call anything easy, but it was the easiest because it had, the least amount of movement in that classification.
You didn't sweat as much, not as longer, not as longer days with 6A in Houston.
Well, you don't necessarily sweat it. But I mean, I was in athletic director in schools before I took this job, and this is the most stressful day for those people that are getting, finding out what districts they're going to come in, who they're going to be competing against. Cause especially when you add those really top level schools in your district, it is stressful, because you want your schools to compete and do well. But on the inside of UIL, it's equally stressful because part of our job is not, everybody doesn't love you. I mean, they just want you to roll things out fairly. And I feel like we do a great job of that.
Absolutely. John, you got something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask what's it like you kind of touched on it there, but to see the reception and people being excited, maybe if they're in a new district or, they've got some new teams in their district, just to see the excitement all across the state from people, ready to compete and seeing who they're going to go up against.
The first day before football starts every year, August 1st, it'll start this year. So that night before, it's, everybody's just so excited, and it feels this same way, except for everybody's just excited to practice. And for this, they're finding out their fate for the next 2 years. So I just, for these schools and all the change that comes with this, I probably, all the texts that I'm getting, I can't speak for all of our staff, are, oh, this is great, thank you. And, people that know me really, really well are saying, okay, what just happened? They get to give you a hard time, but so then we're here more positive that way. But if you want to see the negative, all you got to go do is look on social media. And I'm okay with that. I've always been pretty ingrained in social media, and we're always going to take a look at those things. And I know I'm going to sound cliche on this. We have an appeal process. I think when people can kind of calm down and they look at the maps, they see how limited we are really on the options that we have. And sometimes you're just making a decision between north and south and east and west. And we try to bring it down to mileage every single time.
I'll tell you what, Dr. Elza, on our show, we like to give out bobbleheads to our MVPs who have successful in elite careers. But boy, the stuff you have to go through with realignment, and that's just realignment and all the other duties you have. Well, we need to send one up your way for yourself. So maybe we send us a picture of you wearing your best UIL does, and we'll see if we can get that for you.
Man, there's a bunch of us that deserve bobbleheads. There's some good folks. I appreciate the kind words.
Dr. Elza, that's big news too, because I've worked here for 4 years and they still won't even give me a bobblehead.
He knows I want one. I wanted one for Dr. Braddock, is who I wanted one. He needs to be a bobblehead all the way.
Keep it up in the UIL office. Well, Dr. Elza, once again, thank you so much for joining us today. I know it is stressful, so I hope you get a chance to relax and stay warm in the next few hours, and I hope it doesn't get too crazy today.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for having me. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Hey, John, we haven't really got a chance to even talk about the districts yet. We went right into Dr. Elsa, which I really appreciate. John, talk about what you saw in 6A. Is there anything in 6A that, everything, as long as we go on, everything stays the same. It seems like the more things change. But 13-6A, let's, Jeff, if you can bring up 13-6A, let's talk about that for a little bit. And we're going to have a coach on from 13-6A as well a little later on. But John, maybe talk about that district and the changes there.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Montgomery County ended up having the most, notable headlines of all of Houston for Realignment Day. And that is, in fact, where I started my career, where I came from before I was at the Chronicle. I was the sports editor at the Courier daily newspaper up there in Conroe in Montgomery County. So I know this district very well with all the Conroe ISD schools. You have Willis in there as well. That was a 6-team district the past 2 years. Now they're bumped up to 9. So you have Caney Creek, Cleveland, and New Caney joining in, all moving up from the 5A ranks, as we mentioned earlier. Really interesting. I wasn't sure. I kind of thought Cleveland might go to one of those districts out east, and maybe New Caney would too, maybe with the Humble ISD schools or something like that. But here they are. You heard Dr. Elza talking about the geography, and I guess it just worked out to make this a 9-team district. And Really exciting for these schools. They're getting, 3 new opponents. That's quite a change to go from 6 to 9. So definitely interesting there. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a challenge. Caney Creek, Cleveland, and New Caney are all up in 6A for the very first time. Cleveland has seen a ton of growth. They're up 1,000 students from the last realignment. And I believe 2 realignments ago, they were playing 4A D1 football. So, rapid growth over there. Same in the New Caney area. They're about to open up a high school. And then Caney Creek, of course, we knew with them moving up to 6A that they were going to go with the rest of the Conroe ISD schools. But yeah, really, really interesting to see how this played out.
And we talked in our pre-special. We were kind of hoping that Atascocita and North Shore kind of split apart because they're such dominant football programs, and it would be nice to see them both get a district title if they could. But they're back in the same district as they were before. They're going to have to face each other each year, once a year, maybe twice if they get them in the playoffs.
Yeah, that was another storyline that we were kind of watching, particularly when it comes to football, as you mentioned. They could share the district title, if they end up with the same record, maybe, something works out there. They could both be district champs. But yeah, I mean, each of the past 2 years in this football district, it's come down to those two teams playing each other. North Shore has prevailed. And of course, this past season, they went on to win their 3rd state championship in the past 4 years. Excellent job by Coach John Kay and that staff over there at North Shore. But yeah, I mean, if you look at it this way, we got 2 matchups from North Shore and Atascocita, one in district play and then one in the state quarterfinals. So, I'm not really going to be mad if we get a couple matchups out of these teams, for the next 2 years also. Because, I mean, we could very well end up seeing that happen.
Absolutely. We got some 5A teams jumping up to 6A, but they were easy districts to go into with Hightower, obviously going to go in with the Fort Benns, and Paytow obviously going to go in with the Cadies. Talk a little bit about how you think they will fare in those districts. And we should have Coach BJ Gott on with this here in a little bit, but he's at the airport right now. He's going to jump on in a second. But talk about how you feel. Let's talk about Fort Bend Hightower right now and how that you think they might be successful in the Fort Bend district.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it's a natural fit with them moving up to 6A to be with the rest of those 6A Fort Bend schools. And then you have George Ranch, which is kind of on its own down there in Lamar Consolidated, but they end up, back with the Fort Bend ISD schools. So that's a nice little district there, and a competitive one as well. And, not just in football, but across a lot of different sports. Hightower, I think that they're well positioned to be competitive and, at least when it comes to football, compete for a playoff spot. This is a program that has really done a nice job of establishing itself. They're in the playoffs every year. They made a really nice playoff run this past season before falling to Paytow. And, I would fully expect them to be right there in the mix, even though they are going to be one of the smaller schools in that district.
We see the district put up on the screen right now. Ridgeport has kind of been the rulers of the roost there, but it'd be nice to see how Hightower battles with them. Let's talk a little bit about some of the Cypress districts. There are going to be no movement whatsoever in those. Is that? I mean, that's what we expected. But in 15-6A, we do see Waller moving up in with the Klein schools and Tomball schools. How do you think Waller will battle in that district?
Yeah, I mean, Waller has been in some tough 5A districts in recent years, so they're definitely a school that's battle tested, that sees good competition across all sports. I haven't looked at the map, but it'd be interesting to see how they kind of got looped in there. But I mean, it makes sense. You already had the Klein ISD schools and Tomball ISD schools together, and then you just reach out a little further to the west and grab Waller and kind of add to that district. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's a natural fit there as well. It adds another team to that district that was already pretty competitive, and I'll be interested to see how the Bulldogs can fare.
How about let's move down to 5A Division One. You see a lot of teams move up, especially Crosby, who battled for the state title 2 years ago and was in the regional final after that. And they're moved up into District 8 5A Division One. Jeff, if you want to pop that one up. And they also have the Baytown schools, and they have Barbers Hill, LaPorte, and Port Arthur Memorial. Talk about how competitive that district might be.
Yeah, it's going to be really competitive. And they were in a pretty solid district the past 2 years as well. Kingwood Park and Barbers Hill are also moving up to 5A D1. So especially Barbers Hill, they kind of shocked the world this past season, knocking off Fort Bend Marshall in the first round of the playoffs. So they're a formidable program. And then Crosby, the success that they've had the past 2 years has just been unprecedented under Coach Jerry Prieto over there. I mean, they've done a fantastic job. This is just another challenge for them. Port Arthur Memorial coming in, that is a daunting task because that is a really good program over there that's coming off a district title as well. So the challenge will be there for Crosby. I would expect them to compete right at the top of this new district, though.
I find odd about that deal is that they're in 8-5A. That used to be the Magnolias district. So that means when the playoffs start happening, they'll be in Region 2, have to travel up to Dallas teams to play, potential Crosby Longview matchups. I mean, I find that interesting as well. Do you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, once you kind of get over the initial shock and seeing like, okay, what districts, what teams and schools are grouped together in the districts, then you start looking at the districts themselves and where they're aligned within the regions and everything like that. And you're right, you get that 7-8, District 7-8 matchup in the first round of the playoffs. As you mentioned before, with the Magnolia schools and College Station and all of them, that was their district before, and they were playing, the Highland Parks of the world and everybody, a really tough 5A district up there in the by-district round, particularly for football. But yeah, I mean, it's always interesting. You can really start diving into kind of how each district is aligned within the region and what that's going to mean for playoffs and playoff travel because, bridging the gap for football, the higher seeds get home game in the first round. So having to go up to Dallas, that's a big deal for a team if you're not finishing in the top two of the district there.
We talked about the Magnolia teams. So where'd they go? They put them in with Foster and Manville and Angleton, the ones that used to be battling with Peyto and Hightower till they went up. That's actually a pretty interesting district, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this was one of the more interesting headlines to me out of the Houston area. We weren't really sure where Magnolia and Magnolia West were going to land. Magnolia West actually only slipped under 6A by 8 students, so they were barely under 6A. But they're staying in 5A with Magnolia. But yeah, this is a really interesting district because you have all the teams from the past 10 5A D1 district, of course, and then you have Magnolia schools coming all the way down. It's like an hour and a half drive, I think, for those guys. But so that was definitely interesting. They're kind of out there on an island by themselves, though, so I guess it makes sense geographically. And then you had in that district last year, you had Peyto and Hightower. So you're just replacing Peyto and Hightower with a couple other strong programs in Magnolia and Magnolia West. And I think that they'll compete well. You have 6 playoff teams for football in this district, 6 teams that made the playoffs last year. So that's going to be really competitive. That's basically like kind of the new 8-5A D1 Houston district, if you will.
Right. And the Magnolia's got away from College Station, but then they have to face Manville and those kind of guys.
Yeah.
Drifting down to 5A Division 2, we only have really 2 districts in the Houston area that we really worry about. And Fort Bend Marshall is going to be see some competition. It looks like they lost most of all of the Houston ISD teams, but they still get Texas City, they get Dayton, they get PNR, Santa Fe. That's an interesting district for them. So they may not get slapped in a round in the first round after having a great season because they're going to be tested.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a great move for Marshall, to be honest. Their regular season schedule, of course, it was no fault of their own that they were playing in a bunch of blowouts before. They're a really good program, really had really good teams, and they were just head and shoulders above the rest of those programs. But, now they're going to get a little bit of a challenge. As you mentioned, Texas City was a playoff team last year, had a really nice year. And then you add in some other schools as well, PNG. Looking at there, so it's definitely going to be a more competitive district for Marshall, but I think in the long run, it's going to be a good thing preparing them for the playoffs and maybe getting some closer games to district action.
Get them ready for it. We have a guest, and I believe Ashley knows who it is. So let's hear what we got.
Yes. So joining us now is Travis Reed, the head coach of New Caney. Coach, welcome in to our realignment special. I know today has been a very long day for everyone, a really an interesting day as things happen. You are classification into a 9-team district and you're moving up. How do you feel about where you've been placed?
Well, we're excited about it. You know, it's going to be a great challenge for us moving up to 6A. We knew that there was a 50-50 chance of going to either the Conroe schools or to the Humble schools, and UIL put us in Conroe. It's going to be an all Montgomery County district, and we're excited about it.
Coach, one more thing. Any way that we can get you to turn on your camera for us? There you
There
are.
he is.
Hello. Welcome in. We love seeing your face, man.
Yes. Well,
I believe you're familiar.
I'm not always great with technology.
I believe you know John Foreman quite well, so I'm going to let him ask you the first question.
Hey, Coach, how's it going?
That's going great.
You mentioned, being in this 9-team Montgomery County district. How exciting is that prospect, keeping it in the county and playing some schools that, are right there kind of in your area and, seeing especially the competition that you're going to be facing?
Well, I think it's great. It's going to be, like I said, all Montgomery County. Our kids are going to have some familiarity with the kids and teams that we're going to be playing against. Obviously, we haven't played against them in district play, and it's going to be a great challenge for us. There's a lot of great teams. It's a district that's got a lot of great coaches in it, and so we're going to have to be ready every single week. But, I think our kids are excited about the challenge, and we look forward to it.
Having the 9-team district does bring one challenge. You only have to find 2 non-district games. Have you done that already? And maybe you can tell us who you got.
Yeah, we have. We're going to play Montgomery week 1. And then, of course, we want to keep in the battle line game with Porter. That's always a big rivalry game. And that was going to be a priority for us. And so we're going to play them week 2, and then we get right into district play.
And you're in Region 2 again. I mean, you were in Region 2 at 5A. So you guys will play a couple Houston games, and then you move on up to play some Dallas teams in like round 2. So you're kind of used to that, but what's the feeling about playing not playing all Houston teams right away and having to do some travel round 2?
Well, when we in our 5A district, the last 2 years we've had to go up to Highland Park in Dallas right off the bat and play. And so in this district, we would be playing in Houston the first 2 rounds before we go to Dallas. And that's, that to me, that's better than what we've been doing. Obviously the competition is going to be really good. And, it's going to be a battle every single week. Region 2, just like it was in 5A, is a beast of a region. But we'll play the hand that's been dealt us and get after it. And hopefully we're there to be able to participate in that.
Coach, how would you kind of describe the growth that you've seen in New Caney ISD? And obviously you guys are moving up to 6A, and that's a big deal. How would you kind of describe, since you've been there, the growth of not only the school district, but your program and the school and everything, out that way in East Montgomery County?
It's really growing, and seems like every time I drive around, I see a new neighborhood popping up, and it's a great place to be. There's a lot of new development. And so, as a result of that, it creates change. Obviously the change for us is going up to 6A, and but there's a new school being opened up next year in New Caney ISD with West Fork High School. And so, both us and Porter are being affected by that. But, anytime that you have change, it brings new opportunities. And that's just kind of how we look at this opportunity moving up to 6A.
You've had a chance to take a look at all the 6A districts. Is there anything that kind of came out, surprised you? Maybe you weren't expecting?
Well, honestly, for me, probably the biggest surprise is that we didn't go south, with the Humble schools. And I wasn't sure what they were going to do with Bryan. I kind of felt like Bryan may go with the Conroe schools and with Willis, and that might push us south. But they put Bryan in a Central Texas district, And so because of that, I assume that's why we're going the way that we're going. But I think, I haven't had a chance to really look through all of it just yet. I know that there's a lot of, surprises, so to speak, but a lot of times those are surprises based upon how you think it's going to go. But the UIL does a great job every single year or every 2 years of doing this. And, it'll be interesting to really dive into it once we get a chance to kind of settle down and see it all.
Awesome. Well, Coach Reeve, thank you so much for joining us here on our Campfire Realignment Special. We enjoyed hearing from you. We look forward to seeing you, Katie, also this year in their new district and seeing y'all compete in 6A.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me, and appreciate what y'all do for Texas high school football. It's what makes it special.
Thank you so much, sir. You have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us.
You too. Thank you.
Guys,
go ahead.
Great as always, having coaches on with us. We are having another coach join us here now as the Katy Paytow head coach BJ Gott is on with us. And they were in 5A. They made a big splash as they won a state title last year. Now they're moving up to 6A with the Katy ISD schools. Coach, talk about your new district. Talk about moving up to 6A.
Oh, it's going to be exciting. It's an exciting challenge for our kids and our school. It's obviously going to be a step up. So we're excited for the challenge.
And Coach, do you mind turning on your camera for us?
Yep. Let me.
Thank you so much.
Sorry. I'm in the airport.
He's on the
You're
road.
at the airport.
Yeah, I'm at the airport, so we're good to go now.
He's on the move, man. You can't keep a good man down like that. He's got places to go.
Well, yeah.
Hey, talk about getting back into 19-6A. You bringing Jordan up with you. The reason why you're traveling is because you knew this was going to happen, so you probably already made your plans already. But to be able to play against some of the teams that you're so familiar with, especially Katy, where you got a couple rings with, talk about being in that district.
Oh, it's going to be a challenge, no doubt. The only thing easier about it is maybe the travel, but that's it. So, Jordan and Morton Ranch and Tompkins and Katy and Cinco Ranch is on the rise. Seven Lakes made the playoffs last year. So, Taylor went to the semifinals a few years ago. So it's going to be a huge challenge for our kids.
Hey, Coach, we kind of talked about this the other night, but, the Katy ISD district, you guys are all together here now. What's the significance or how cool is it to be able to play against some of those teams?
It's really cool. The kids grow up competing against one another as youngsters in KYF and junior high. So they know each other. We had Morton Ranch on our schedule a couple of years, and, our kids got a little extra excited for that game. So now you're going to have 8 games where you're competing against kids that you've grown up with. So it'll be fun.
You got 2 non-district games to make plans for. Have you done that? And who might you be playing in the non-district?
Yeah, so we're going to be playing Conroe week 1, and then we'll be playing Cy Ranch week 2.
That's awesome. That's the way you get competing right away.
We'll find out real quick where we stand.
Is there any challenges that you've moving to 6A? I mean, you obviously have the numbers, but is there any other challenges that you are planning for in that move from 5A to 6A?
I think the biggest jump for us is going to be the size up front on the offensive and defensive lines. We had some size on the offensive side of the ball, but we really weren't all that big on the defensive side. So the defensive line and offensive lines are kind of where you see the biggest jump for 5A to 6A.
John, you got anything else from my guy?
Let's see. I'm trying to think about what we talked about the other night. I mean, you mentioned the 2 non-district games and, scheduling some strong competition there, 2 playoff teams from last year in Conroe and Cy Ranch. How important was that, at the beginning of the season to get 2 competitive games there and gear you up for district play?
Yeah, I mean, when you only have 2 games, you don't have much room to grow. You got to be ready. So, we've got a tough non-district schedule, but I think that's going to get us ready so we know where we're at and what we need to improve on when it matters. You
graduated a lot of skill position guys, but you can show that ring to the younger guys and say, hey, this moving to 6A is just another challenge. We conquered this last challenge. Let's just do it again. Is that something that you kind of be able to show off for the younger guys and keep them a little extra motivated?
Yeah, I mean, you can't put a price on experience. And with the experience our underclassmen got, we moved up a bunch of sub-varsity kids for the playoff run. So they got that 6 extra weeks of practice. They got to travel with us. And so that confidence that they've gained over the 6 weeks of playoff run is what we're counting on to kind of give us an opportunity to be successful.
Awesome. Well, Coach Scott, thank you so much for joining us here on our Campfire Realignment Special. Safe travels as you are jet setting off to somewhere across the country. I'm not going to ask where you're going, but thanks for joining us, and congratulations. We haven't gotten to talk to you since your state championship. So congratulations on your program's success, and good luck in the coming season.
Thank you all very much for having me. Thank you.
Guys, we've had two phenomenal, great coaches on with us. Has there been anything that they've said that's kind of piqued some interest, or, you know, had some light bulbs go off for you guys from what they've been talking about, or any points that have really stuck out to y'all?
Well, I think, you know, particularly for football teams, you know, part of the mad dash of this day is getting those non-district games sorted out. You know, everybody around the state, once they find out, okay, how many games do I actually need? What district am I in? You know, then they immediately start going into scheduling mode and trying to find some good competition to warm up for those district games. You know, in the bigger 6A districts, you know, for example, like with 19 6A and the KD schools, you only get a couple, so you really want to try to make the most of them if you can. You know, I know my years covering Montgomery County, you know, you always saw the Woodlands, they would get anywhere from, you know, 2, 3, 4 non-district games, but they would schedule really talented programs, and maybe they would go 2 and 2, but you would know come district play that they were ready to go, battle tested. So, you know, I think that's always really interesting to see kind of where schools can find those opponents, who they can find as those opponents, and how that's going to prepare them for district action.
Awesome. Well, joining us now, we have another coach coming on as the George Ranch head coach. Nick Cavallo is here. Coach, welcome in. The Longhorns were one of the teams that thought they might be moved in realignment, but that didn't happen. How do you feel about being back in the Fort Bend ISD district school with the Fort Bend ISD schools?
Yeah, no, it's, you know, we did not think it was going to happen just with the 19 district, but, you know, location wise and everything, it makes sense. And we're excited to be back in there. I've mentioned this before, but, you know, when Mercer Stadium's open, it's actually closer for us than my home stadium, Trailer Stadium. So we're just excited, you know, with the addition of Hightower, just to be in a tough competitive district.
Coach, talk about Hightower's moving up, and you've seen all these other guys, but maybe not seen Hightower as much. Talk about battling it out with those guys.
No, it's definitely gonna be good. We've played them on the sub-varsity the last couple of years with you know, having some of the other teams around not having the 4 and 5 teams. So we've played them the last couple of years, and I'm familiar. Worked with Coach Anthony at Terry, and their DC, worked with him as well. So know the coaching staff, and you know they're loaded with athletes. It's going to be a tough addition. You know, I think they jump up in line with the Ridge Point as a favorite. Just I mean they're loaded with athletes. So.
Coach, you guys are kind of on a little bit of an island there, and realignment day is always, you know, you're not sure exactly where things are going to land. You know, what's that like, kind of the anticipation, and then, you know, once you do find out, kind of the reaction that you guys have as a coaching staff there?
Oh yeah, definitely. We're out here on the island. You know, it's anxious. It's you know, guessing. You're trying to figure out, you know, where you're going to go. You know, we saw 3 or 4 different scenarios that had us going in from staying in Fort Bend all the way out to the Clear Lake district. You know, so you just start looking, and then with games, your pre-district games, you know, are you going to be an 18 district, a 9-team district? Do I need 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks in games and whatnot? So that just whole anticipation, just waiting up for that into that moment where, you know, we're able to open the packet and kind of see exactly where we are.
I found that you brought up the Clear Lake district. They're sitting there with 7 teams. I thought for sure that might be a spot for you to keep you out of a 9. But since you're in a 9, you got 2 games non-district. Have you figured those games out yet? And would you be willing to let us know?
Yeah, we're working on finalizing it, but as of right now, we have Richmond Foster and Katie Taylor as our non-district games, just working out where it's going to be and date and all that stuff.
Oh, that's all. Those are 2 big games. I like to hear it. Yeah, it's always interesting because you see it in DFW too. They had 2 9-team districts and 2 7-team districts, and we tried to ask Dr. Elza about possibly making even them out to 8 and 8, so people have a little bit more non-district battles. But are you good with being in the 9, or is at this point it doesn't really matter? You're going to play what's in your schedule.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to play within the schedule. I think when you start looking at the 9-team district, to me, one of the important things is kind of where your bye week falls. So that's what we're kind of looking at now as we try to figure out the order and draw and all that stuff within our district. I was a fan of before with the 8-team districts, kind of having your pre-district games, a bye week, and then flowing right into it, where that won't be the case now. So we're just going to try to figure out kind of where it is. If it's in the middle where you kind of break it up, have a break, is it at the end or is it towards the end? So that's really the next big thing as we look at the schedule of it, is where we draw in the pick and where the bye week comes in.
Yeah, that being said, how important it was to get 2 quality opponents, for those non-district games, given that, you likely won't have a bye going into district play.
I think it's huge. I've always been one. If you look in the last 4 years since I've been here at George Ranch, our non-district games have all been playoff contenders, have all been, people that went long into the runs and stuff. I think it's really important that when you play your non-district games, you challenge yourself and you got to find out a little bit about your football team. I've been on teams before where we went 3 or 4-0, and then we end up winning one district game and we're 5-5 and 1-5 or 1-4 in district. I would much rather, you want to win every game, but I'd much rather come out 0-2 and then run the table in district as opposed to the other way around.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time today. Good luck to your Longhorns in the coming season. We genuinely do appreciate you having you on our Campfire Realignment Special today.
Well, thank you very much for having me on, and just thank you for all that y'all do in the Houston area and for high school football in the state of Texas.
Well, we love what we do, and we love getting to feature all of these phenomenal athletes and great teams. So thank you again. And guys, another phenomenal interview with another great coach on with us. This realignment is a very interesting one, as not a ton of movement, but definitely has some interesting things. What are some of the things that you guys from the George Ranch head coach, was there anything that you kind of picked up that really stuck out, or is there anything that was said that kind of, it was an interesting fact for you?
Yeah, I think, or when you asked them about Hightower, I think you'll get the similar response from all of these coaches in 26A, is like, they expect them to be competitive. And that goes back to what I said earlier and kind of my expectations for that program joining this district. They expect Hightower to be in the mix and put up a battle each week.
Yeah, it's some fans may see it as 5A is moving up to 6A as like a minor league player moving up to the majors, but that's simply not the case. These schools have the numbers; they're ready to compete, and they should be able to compete as soon as they get in the district. So I expect Hightower to give some flash. I expect Peyto to definitely be a playoff team and maybe even challenge for a title somewhere down the line sooner rather than later.
Ward, way to use a baseball reference on this one. So one of the interesting things, and I'm going to go all the way back to Dr. Elza, was when she was talking about the maps and how they kind of line up. When you're thinking about, and Coach Cavea said it, they're closer to Mercer Stadium than they are to their own stadium. When you think about those maps, when we think about some of these alignments that are happening in Houston, were there any that kind of stuck out to you guys?
To me, it was just a 13-6A. I thought instead of going 9, they could probably put one of the either Cleveland or New Caney. They probably weren't going to do it with New Caney, but maybe Cleveland in another district. I think 22-6A actually kind of made out. They were probably nervous that they were going to get some humble teams in there, and they're back to the same district, so they'll be able to. Every team in there should be able to compete for a district title and not have to worry about an humble team or a North Shore team that may have a little bit better talent on the field, keeping them down a bit. So I think they made out pretty well. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I agreed. I think you're definitely correct there. That's a district that, like you said, could have easily, taken on another one or two, just depending on how things panned out. But yeah, I think you got to be pretty happy if you're in that district right now and kind of looking at things and the amount of non-district games you're going to get for football and all that.
And my last question, I know Elza didn't talk about it, but it's something that was interesting, and I'd love for the Houston area to get y'all's input on it. But having a 7A, and they were talking about it coming soon. Dr. Elza and the UIL was. Can you just kind of give us your thoughts on the Houston area and how that would affect us, how that would affect the area going forward in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, Houston is one of the biggest contributors to the growth of the UIL and all the schools within the state. I mean, you see it everywhere. You see it in Montgomery County, and you see it, even out here in Cypress where I am, and it's just expanding. They're building. It seems like they're opening 2 new schools every year across the city, and then those schools are growing. They're not just opening and staying put. They're growing. These districts are growing. So, I mean, eventually you're going to get to the point where, you're going to have to open it up to a class 7A. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see what that looks like, especially in the beginning stages. I don't have any insight as to how exactly that's going to work or what that's going to look like, but it's definitely an interesting storyline to watch over the next couple of years. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you both for your time. I appreciate it. And thank you to all of our coaches that joined us, and as well as Dr. Elza. The Campfire Realignment Special, you can watch on all of our social media platforms when we're done being live. They'll all be posted to your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Follow all of those as we bring you more in the coming weeks, and soon the actual Campfire, where we break down all of our districts, will be coming on as soon as our Inside High School Sports is done here in the next few weeks. But I'm Ashley Billington, and for John Foreman and Ward Fisfold, as well as everyone else, partnered with Inside High School Sports and our producer director, Jeff Watkins. Thank you so much for watching.